Hey everyone, I'm Heinz and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are having a fantastic week, and in today's video we'll be taking a deep look at EA Black Dragon. What this means is we'll be diving into the settings for this expert advisor that uses the Black Dragon combined with a modified stochastic indicator to trade in the markets. However, before moving forward, I'm going to ask you for a quick favor. Please show your support for this long format video by hitting that like button. Also subscribe to stay updated with future videos. Now, in this video, we'll be covering some of the basic parameters of Expert Advisor Black Dragon, including the hedge versus no hedge function. We'll be deep diving into the trading strategy, looking at the grid settings, the entry criteria, and how it all comes together. On top of that, we'll also be looking at the different grid settings and how the dynamic distance and overlap technique work live in the market. Then lastly, we'll be looking at the news filter, as news plays a crucial role in trading. It's important to have it set up correctly, so I'll do it step by step to show you how it's done. But before anything else, we need to take a look at the basic parameters of EA Black Dragon. Now, to get started, you're either going to need a MetaTrader 4 or MetaTrader 5 terminal and then a MQL5 account to have access to the demo version of the EA. Those of you that have already purchased the Expert Advisor can continue along and just load the settings that I'm about to feature today. I will have both a MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5 version of the set file available, so make sure to take advantage of that. Now, to get started, we need to set everything up, and today we'll exclusively focus on the AUD CAD or the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar in the 15-minute time frame. I've actually increased the initial test, which you'll see a little bit later, and we'll be testing over 24 months. Now, the recommended deposit by the author is 3,000, or the equivalent is $30 in a cent account if you'd like to first trace the strategy like that. Now, basic parameters include the direction of trading and opening or closing new series. Now, these two settings can be used if you like to use a mixed style where you want to stop DEA from trading in a specific direction by simply selecting false. These two can also be done directly on the panel of the EA, which we'll also be covering later in the video. Now, first important choice when it comes to trading EA Black Dragon is, are we going to use a bi-directional strategy or only trade in a single direction at a time? Now, this comes in when we use the hedge function, and it can either be true or false depending on what direction you'd like to trade. Now, for this examples, we won't be using any manual orders, but if you'd like the EA to manage other trades, you can just change that to true. Now, the hedge function works as follow, and we'll be using a few different examples because it's very important that you know which one you'll be using. Now, the two set files at the end also uses the hedge function, and on default, this is typically set to true. But it's important for you as the trader to understand what this means. And this hedge function is different to those of grid machine or center ENA, as it only listens to signals provided by the Black Dragon indicator on default. So if we look at a trading example with hedge selected as true, the indicator is looking for both buys and sells at the same time. You'll see that both of the orders have their break even and also their take profit targets. Now, it's important to understand that each the buy and the sell grid work independently, meaning that they each have their own set of orders, own take profit targets, depending on what you have set up in the settings. On default, each of the buy or sell grid is looking for 200 points to reach its target. Now, if we compare this to hedge set as false, you'll notice that the EA is only trading in a single direction at a time. This has the effect of halving the amount of trades that the EA will place throughout the course of our testing period. So now it's only trading in one direction at a time, and if the market moves against it, it will use a cost averaging system and then ultimately the overlapping technique to get out of a trade. So if we take a quick look at the results of what this would look like over a 24-month period, so from the 10th of January 2022 until the 10th of January 2024, if the hedge function is set to true, we have a lot more trades in the market. Remember, it is only using the Black Dragon indicator at the moment to determine when to buy or sell, and these are two independent grids trading at the same time. Now, using a 0.01 lot size, we generated 16K in profits with a high drawdown of 4,800. Now, this shows us that the EA can be very aggressive if you leave it on default. So it's important that you decide if you want to use an aggressive or conservative approach when it comes to your own risk appetite. But it still gives us a great ratio and a very high profit factor, even though it only won 70% of the trades. Now, the next option, which will be more conservative, is having hedge set to false. Now, a lot of prop firms require you to only trade in one direction at a time, so if you need to adjust, you'll need to do this. So we've actually halved the amount of trades to 1,300 from our previous 2,700, and we've now generated around 8K in profits with the 4,600 in drawdown. So this shows me that one of the grids went into serious drawdown, and then the overlapping technique had to start working its magic. So the 8K profit is with a 46K drawdown, which is relatively high. But as we continue to optimize the EA, you'll see this figure going down. Now, the comments allow you to specify what strategy you are using, what instrument you are trading, and specifically what EA. On top of this, you also have a maximum spread filter, which is very good to avoid sudden spikes in price and also increases in the spread. Now, it's important to adjust this for your account type and also for your broker. So I'm going to use an example of 45. Now, when it comes to trading hours, this is one of the most important aspects when it comes to trading these bots. Now, for this section, let's take a look at specifying the server time. So the server under the market watch is set to GMT plus 3. Meaning, for this kind of strategy, what I'd like to do is avoid the New York session and a little bit of Sydney as well. So we'd like to start in Tokyo session, and another great tool to find out the time is to use my FX book. So you'll see we want to see when the Australian session is starting and when the Canada session is starting, and basically trade between these two zones. Now in GMT plus 3, which the set files will be set up for, you'll notice that this is typically the London session. So we'll trade the end of the Asia session as well as the start of the London session, which means we'll also avoid most of the major news events. Now you have two different approaches when it comes to trading hours. I have one which is considered conservative, where I trade for 3 hours a day, and the other one, which is a bit more aggressive, trades for 12. So as an example, on GMT plus 3, we can trade on the conservative side from 6 to 9 with a hedge set to false, and then for the more aggressive option, we'll trade from 2 to 12 using hedge as true. Now, each of these different approaches can be used on multiple accounts and different instruments, so make sure to load your market watch and test the strategy against different instruments. So now let's take a quick look at the results of using this new entry criteria. So basically, we've set a 3 hour period for the EA to enter, and this has a significant effect on the drawdown. So we went from a $4,600 drawdown to $1,700. However, our profit also fell from $8,000 to $4,700. Our trades continue to decrease and we only placed 869 trades, which means our profitable trades or win rate is slightly up from the previous example. Now, using this strategy, trading for only 3 hours a day limits the drawdown, but it still provides us with a nice return. So this is the basis of the conservative set file, which is available for free, and it only trades for 3 hours a day. The other side of the spectrum, if we want to go more aggressive, is to trade for 12 hours a day, which will be from 2 to 2 p.m. Now, doing this, we also need to now change the head function as we will be using the bidirectional option. Bidirectional trading means it has both buys and sells at the same time, and remember that each of these is a separate grid. Now, with those small changes made, we increased the amount of trading hours and gave the hedge option true. We'll see a very aggressive graph generating over 13K in total net profit with a drawdown of 3,500. So you'll see our total net profit was $13,621, still starting with a zero point zero 0.01 lot size. We have an equity drawdown now of 3,400 compared to the 4,800 of the previous test. You'll see our profit factor is still high and we have a nice total quantity of trades of over 2,300. Now, this moves a more aggressive approach, but this covers the basic parameters of how the EA works. So we looked at should you enter a new series and how to turn that on or off, and also which direction to trade. Now, important when it look at the trading strategy itself, it's based on two indicators. Firstly, we have the Black Dragon indicator that uses the Bollinger Bands combined with Fibonacci levels and a multi-time frame filter. This trend trading indicator showcases us the buy and the sells, which the EA Black Dragon then enters using the default. So I'm running the default indicator on the 15-minute, which is what we are currently trading. And this now shows us where the buys and the sells are detected by the expert advisor and how it enters. Now, on top of this, you also have the option of adding another indicator as a second criteria, meaning then you will be using a dual indicator strategy. So, along with Black Dragon, you also have the option of using a modified stochastic. Now, the modified stochastic is created to also detect overbought and oversold levels, which are then combined with the signals from EA Black Dragon. So you'll notice the modified stochastic when it goes above 80 or below 20, we can use it as an additional criteria. Now, the two indicator strategy on the 15-minute, in my opinion, generates too many signals. So what I am going to do is I'm going to actually alter the way that the robot trades and use the hourly time frame as my trading filter. Now, this is something that I've used on multiple live accounts and it gives you a much higher win rate with fewer false signals. So here we have the AUD CAD or the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar in the hourly time frame. And looking at the same period as before, you'll see we have a lot less signals. So this is on the hourly, which is the recommended one that I'll be using for the different set files. Remember again, it combines it with the modified stochastic indicator, which we'll see at the bottom right here. The Black Dragon indicator is built using Bollinger Bands, the multi-time frame filter, which you'll see in the right corner of your screen, a trend filter, and also Fibonacci levels. It then uses these to determine when to enter and exit the market according to your own specific criteria. So now that we've looked at the two indicators that build the strategy, what would our trading results look like if we started to use both filters? Remember, the goal of the experiment is to try and get that drawdown as low as possible. So let's take a look at our aggressive option, which is trading from 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. GMT plus 3. And again, now I'll be using the Black Dragon time frame as the hourly, and I've also updated the modified stochastic to become enabled and set the filter to 80 and 20 on the hourly time frame. Now we generated a total net profit of 6,000 and our drawdown is down $300 to 31. We still placed above 1,000 trades with 1,112 trades and a profit factor of 2.60. So this is the example of using the aggressive option with two modified stochastics and the modified Black Dragon indicator. The other one that we were looking at is the conservative option that only trades for 3 hours a day. And this one, with both of the filters enabled, had a really dramatic effect on the drawdown. Remember, previously we saw a drawdown of 1,700 and it's now down to only 1,200. We still had a lovely return of over $1,000 a year or 2,300 in total, with a 2.86 profit factor and over 400 trades placed or 200 per year. So you'll see this type of modification by using both indicators together really makes a huge difference to the way that the EA reacts to the market. Now in the next section, we'll be looking at the strategy itself. So what happens after a trade has been entered by the expert advisor. And now that we have looked at the entry criteria, in other words, the dual indicator strategy, let's continue on with the strategy settings. So after it is entered, you can set the maximum quantity of buy or sell orders. However, be careful not to limit it too much, otherwise it will impede the way that the EA works. Now for the trading that we've done so far, we've used an initial fixed lot of 0.01. However, the bot also offers the option of using a dynamic lot sizing where it determines your auto lot according to your free margin. Now, if you'd like to use the auto lot function, let's take a quicker look at how it works. Now, the first thing that you'll need to do to enable the auto lot to calculate the lot size per free margin is you'll need to change it from false to true. This will then automatically start calculating the auto lot according to the free margin. So for example, if we're trading on a $3,000 account and we use a free margin of 1,000 per 0.01, then our first lot sizing will be a 0.03. Now, in my personal experience, I found the $1,000 per 0.01 to be very aggressive and would rather recommend that you look at 2,500 to 5,000. The reason why I say this is if your lot sizing is too large, you could have a margin call. Now that we are talking about margin call, you will also notice that the robot doesn't use a stop loss. So it's important that you run a equity guard on top of what you are currently trading. This means that you need to run an additional software to protect the account. So now that we look at the strategy test, we've set the auto lot to enabled and we're using 1,000 on a $3,000 account. It means either the first buy or sell will be a 0.03. So instead of using a 0.01 fixed lot like we've been using so far, as the account balance grows, larger and larger lots will be used according to using that as true. Now, as I've said before, I don't recommend using 1,000 because it is very aggressive. Rather start at 2,500 and you can increase it further to over 5,000. I prefer using a conservative set file, 1,000, meaning on a 10K account, it will start with a 0.02. So now that we've seen what a major difference such a small function can make, we are going to proceed with the other strategy settings to take a look at how these exactly work and what they do after it used the time frame filters and the other that we've already enabled to start a trade. So now that we have covered the dynamic lot sizing, we're going to continue to our take profit and trailing stop options. Now, furthermore, it is important that you understand when the market moves against you, it will start using a lot multiplier. Now, how the lot multiplier works is it changes the way that it interacts with the first lot sizing. So, for example, on default, it is set to 1.5. What the 1.5 means is it will times that by your first initial lot, and that's how the cost averaging grid sizing is determined. So once you've decided your O2 lot size for free margin, you can then look at what you can set as your maximum lot and also your lot multiplier. Remember, a higher lot multiplier will increase your lot sizing exponentially or much quicker, whereas a lower lot multiplier is considered to be more conservative. So after you've determined the lot multiplier that you'd like to use, and for these examples, I'm going to stick to the aggressive 1.5, you need to determine what is your take profit and take trailing stop levels. Now, for these examples, it's important that you use to determine this with each broker that you trade with. What I've seen is that different take profits and trading stops work well with different brokers. So, how are you going to determine what is the value that you need to use for your take profit and trailing stop? The way that I like to use this is by using the optimization function of MetaTrader 5. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to access your MetaTrader 5 terminal and select the criteria of which you would like to use the optimization. By doing this, you can then increase the amounts or decrease them according to the results. So to do this under optimization, you select slow complete algorithm and then you select the criteria on the left-hand side that you would like to optimize. For the two set files, I'll leave the take profit at 200 and you can further optimize it for yourself. Now, the next very important thing that we are going to look at is the overlap technique. Now, how the overlap technique works, and we'll look at a live example from the past couple of weeks where I've been trading EA Black Dragon on the AUD CAD, and we'll see how it works. So what happened in this pair or on this specific example, you will notice that we had both buy and sells at the same time. This means my hedge is set to true and I'm using bi-directional trading. Now the overlap technique works is once you are past a specific number that you set in your grid, it starts closing the first and the last order as the market moves and creates pullbacks. This means it moves your grid along with price so that you have a higher probability of it hitting your final take profit. Now, from these examples, you'll see that it happens for both buy and sell orders. And remember, as I said before, that these two sides work independently. So here you'll see that we had multiple buys, and the whole time, as the market gave us an opportunity, it started closing the first and the last order to reach the specific criteria for the overlap technique. Now, depending on how you set up your overlap technique, you can either let your grid go into multiple trades before doing it and then go for a higher take profit, or you can set it at a smaller amount if you have too many grids and you'd like them to start closing. So even though the market was trending against us in that example, you'll still see the overlapping technique closing different orders and getting us out of trouble. Now, depending on what you set as your overlapping technique criteria, it will have a major effect on how the robot handles drawdown. So if we look at an example using our aggressive settings, so we're trading from 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. GMT plus free, and all of the other criterias have been adjusted, making a small change to the overlap technique from 8 to 6 and 3 to 4, meaning the sixth order in the grid and the first order will be used with an overlap percentage of 4 to close the orders. Now, this gave us a total net profit of 6,900, which is a little bit down. However, we see a significant drop in the drawdown. Now, this shows us how the overlap technique that was already in place, remember it was active and set at 8 and free, can be adjusted according to how you would like it to react when the bot goes into drawdown. This can also be seen if we look at the graph because we see these major steps in price. On top of this is our first example where we have auto lot enabled. However, I have set it at very conservative at over 5,000. The next important thing that we need to cover within the grid is, of course, the distancing between the different trades. Now, the way that the dynamic distance works is we have our first 6 orders at a fixed distance. This is set by having a number set next to your order dynamic distance. So the first fixed distance will be for the first 6 orders. Then after that, it will use the dynamic distance and the distance multiplier. So for this example, the 7th trade would have not been set at 200 points, but rather 240. So you can increase the distance multiplier if you want these to be further apart. So we had a fixed distance of 200, an ordered distance between them of 6, and then a dynamic distance starting at 200 and multiplied by 1.2. So this is to determine how fast pacing there is between your buy and your sell orders. Then additionally, the other important thing that the robot brings is a very good news filter. It has the option of having it enabled or disabled, which doesn't make a difference on the backtesting. However, it's very important when you are trading live. Now, dependent on the severity or the type of news event, you can set it to only trade high impact, medium impact, or low impact, depending on how you want to set up your news station. Now, for me, I like to have the low impact set to false and a 60-minute pause before and after high impact news event, which are marked in red on your chart, and 15 minutes before and after medium news events, which are marked in blue. Now, on top of this, to ensure that your news filter is working correctly, you'll need to add a couple of URLs to your terminal. Now, for this example, I'm going to go to the options and then select Expert Advisor and then add the URLs which will be listed once you've downloaded the EA. What I'll do is I'll also include the beginner's guide for the EA so that you can go through it in your own time and deep dive into the settings that you'd like. So you'll have to add 2 HTTPS or 2 links to your settings for you to be able to use the news filter. The EA will also give you an alert telling you if you haven't done it correctly. So now that we have covered the new settings, which is very important so that you don't trade or place new orders during these high impact events, it is important to note that if your take profit is hit during a news event, it will still close that order. So for those of you that are not allowed to trade during the news, make sure to adjust your take profits during news events so you can avoid getting that hit. Now, the next part that we are going to look at back on the live account is look at the trading panel. Now, the trading panel for EA Black Dragon helps as a semi-automated system to help you trade with these. Remember, for every terminal that you use, you will need to add those links and allow web requests, otherwise you will get an alert from the expert advisor. So this one is set up correctly, so we can take a look at the different buttons. So firstly, we have our buy on off, which is the same as on the back end where you can select for the EA to either take buys or not. Then we have the option to close buys, meaning it will immediately close all of the buy orders that you have. Doesn't matter whether they are in profit or not. You also have the pause option that you can select if you want to just give it a few hours or a couple of minutes to stop it from trading. Then on the orange side, we have the same sell on off. We have the close all sell orders, and we again have the pause on off. Then lastly, we have the option of starting new cycles, which means you can start a brand new cycle even though you are currently in one. Then at the bottom of the chart, we have a manual open buy and open sell order. And then if you have your option enabled, it will also manage those orders. This is then a multiple way that you can interact with the EA without having to go into the settings. So now that we have covered the panel on the chart, which is a very useful tool if you like interacting, we are next going to look at our final set files, which I've made for the viewers. Now, the first one that we'll be looking at is a more conservative approach. However, it does allow bi-directional trading. It trades from 6 in the morning until 9 in the morning, and it is allowed to trade in both directions. I use the hourly Black Dragon indicator and the hourly stochastic filter and a 5,000 O2 lot size, which is again very conservative. Then a 6 and a 4 overlap percentage is combined with a different distance setting, meaning the fixed is for 6 periods, then after that we start at 250, which is then multiplied by 1.2. I use the same new settings for both of the ones, but remember this is not reflected in your backtest. Now, by making these changes, this is now the same set file as which I'm currently going to use on the VPS. So this will be number 2000, which will be the conservative option. And this one generated $846 with an equity drawdown of 277. So by making all of these changes and taking all of the settings that we've gathered together in the video and from the beginner's guide, we were able to reduce a drawdown from originally around 4,800 to only $277. It still placed 497 trades with a high win rate of 72%. You'll see the display of entries by hour is that we are trading in the last part of the Asia session and the first part of Europe. So by only placing hours and placing trades in a specific hour slot, we were able to significantly reduce the drawdown. So now that we have covered the conservative side, I also took the time to make something a bit more aggressive. So we are back to trading from 2 to 2, and this one will have a triple or 4-2 number. It also used the hourly filters for both indicators, so I used a dual indicator strategy and bi-directional trading. Now, a couple of important changes on this side. You'll notice that it is a more aggressive O2 size for free margin, using 2500 and an O2 lot enabled. I did lower the lot multiplier from 1.5 to 1.3, which gives us a bit more breathing room and smaller lot sizing. Then additionally, this one has an overlap number of 7 and 4. However, it uses the default settings for the grid distancing. This means the first 6 orders are 200 points apart or 20 pips, and then after this it multiplies it with 1.2. Now, this set file was able to generate a total return of $6,624 with an equity drawdown of 1,700. It still placed more than 1,000 trades, and the profitability or win rate is up to 70.3. Now, moving forward, if you're watching this in the future, I will be trading both of these set files, which will be featured on my MyFX book account. On top of this, I'd like you guys to comment and tell me your experience or what does your results look like backtesting these with your broker. Lastly, if you'd like me to create more of these longer style format videos, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. Now, as always, guys, if you'd like to increase the way of your profits with algo trading, it's important that you have the right tools for the job. So for the best results, it is important that you use a VPS or virtual private server to host the robots. This, with low latency, ensures that your connection speed is high. And then lastly, you should look for a low spread account. Now, down in the comments or in the description of the video, I will list my personal VPS or the one that I'm using, which has a very low latency, as well as the two brokers that I'm currently trading with. And with all of that, guys, I want to say thank you for watching. If you made it until the end, please drop the video a like. Also, subscribe to stay updated with future content. Until next time, happy trading. Bye.